Blizzard. This isn't very Warcraft. Oh, what isn't very Warcraft? Let's see what Bellular has to say.
Welcome back, everyone. Today, things in fact get more interesting than we really bargained for. So, you know the way that people have been complaining about the treatment of Night Elves in World of Warcraft for years now? They're one of WoW's most unique, beloved races.
Yeah, supposedly
and they've continually
Warcraft
been
3
given the
Night
short
Elves and
straw.
stuff were
We've
much
had
more
major
aggressive.
characters sidelined or used as punchlines for other characters' development. They've been hit with senseless tragedy.
This cinematic of Malfurion taking out an entire horde group here. This was one of the coolest things they've done for Night Elves in a while. I'm not gonna lie, this cinematic was badass.
After the other, there are broken and battered people who have been frozen in time at their lowest point, in spite of being the goddamn cover image for World of Warcraft. They're also the second most played race in Europe and North America, behind the Night Elves, making them the most popular alliance race in the game.
Damn,
also
I didn't know
maybe
that.
the most important race in the game from a narrative perspective, with their ties to the planet Andaloon. So, I think we all hoped that the Heritage Quest would finally put some of that respect in. But it didn't. The Heritage Quest itself wasn't bad, but it does highlight a problem that plagues WoW to its very heart. One that will slowly drive a huge portion, and has been driving a huge portion of the lore-focused players away. Yet somehow, it also has the exact energy, the exact type of content that could literally save WoW from the malaise that hangs over it from Dragonfly.
Oh, wow, okay.
That seems crazy,
Where's he going with
so
this?
let me explain. The quest opens with you being summoned to Warden Arconarin Starshade.
Okay.
It's quite a long name, in Stormwind. All players will of course recognize her actually as a night elf that you rescue from Jadenar in Felwood all the way back in Classic. But you will not recognize her brother, Lysander, because he was only a baby back then. In the time since her escape, she has become a warden, and her brother grew up as a mage. This quest has all the markings of a developer's love and care put in, because you get to chat with these characters about things. Nari's carrying the sword of her human paladin mate, Trey, who was tortured and killed in that quest chain back in Classic. Lysander is talking about...
See, but that's what I'm talking... This is the kind of Warcraft I like. Yeah, tortured and killed. It's good stuff, okay.
Being born after the battle for
No more Dragon Tales
meaning
friends,
he's like, what, 19 years old at most? And he's part of a new generation that's never experienced immortality or any of those old night elf things. So you're tasked to meet Maiev in Felwood to investigate Jadenar. There's been a resurgence in demonic corruption, and Tyrande has not heard back from the detachment that she sent to sort it out. You find Maiev mourning, a dead priestess of the moon, learning that her mission was to purify the moon well and to begin to reclaim the land. And a cute touch actually, if you die in the zone during this quest, the priestess is actually there as a spirit healer.
Oh, wow.
And of course, the idea of
cool.
Felwood being restored for night elves, that is the sort of thing we want to see. The dialogue and the voice work here is solid. Maiev's famous growl and rough attitude kinda carries. You see, Lysander is a mage, and as the leader of the Watchers, one who has spent her days since the Sundering hunting demons, Maiev has absolutely zero trust in him. She'd probably kill him if he wasn't Harry's brother.
Maev's an angry man. She's an angry person.
From the Wolfheart novel is useful here. She hates mages. She actually hates them so much, she secretly assassinated a ton of allied highborn mages and even plotted to kill Malfurion for all of his failures as a leader.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that about her.
No, I didn't know that.
This manifests as her being snarky. Lysander makes observations about magic and fel in the area, and she just bullies him for saying it's obvious. She refuses to use his name. Meanwhile, he goes on to call her Maiev, but he catches himself and says Warden, like his sister. Now you start to make your way into Jadenar proper, learning on the way that a lot of the satyr you're killing are actually corrupted sentinels. And it's thanks to Lysander's knowledge of the fel and arcane that you can free their spirits from corruption.
So all this fel, this was what the Night Elf questline was about? Fel corruption in their previous era. What the hell is going on? I guess he's going to tell us where the fel came from, but I'm trying to think about it myself. Where would all this fel come from? This shit was all done, I thought.
And over the course of a slow RP walk under Maiev's protection, which was a crazy buggy and frustratingly slow experience on launch day, they keep chatting. It turns out this place, whatever it was called before Jadenar, was where their mother, a druid, slept. And that's another bit of lore that's easy to forget. After the Sundering, when Nordrassil was blessed by the aspects, Ysera's part came with a price. Malfurion and the new druids would have to help Ysera care for and protect the dream, which meant that they were called to sleep for vast swaths of time
to
spent
protect the
in
dream,
service,
they'd have to go to sleep.
apart from family and loved ones. And as you get further in, Arcanaren reveals the truth to her brother, that this is where, yes, she was captured and held by the demons back in Classic, and that is why she's been acting weird. Maiev tells Nari of her own capture at Illidan's hands, but that the freedom that comes after is hers alone, and ultimately she chose to join the Wardens, and that was a blessing. Lysander asks Maiev if she has any siblings, and she brings up Jared and his various heroic deeds. Cute bonding moment because she's clearly not used to somebody knowing of Jared or showing interest in her, and after that she calls Lysander by name. Moving on, the actual question here is simple. Kill a load of demons and cultists, which includes some pretty new additions like corrupted Mag'har orcs, which tells a tiny story of what influence demons can still have in the world. The other part is to protect Lysander while he closes portals deep within the Barrow Dens. He has tons of voiced dialogue during this. He's seen grief despite his youth, and he even says you, the Night Elf player, has seen your share. He talks about Nari's capture and how
they're about to find the source of where all this corruption's coming from. I did want to say corrupted Mag'har orcs is an interesting thought. Because remember, the Mag'har and everything about them, like the reason that, WoD happened and everything is that Garrosh goes there and stops them from drinking the blood of Manaroth. So those are like pure orcs, right? Like that's why they have the brown skin and everything. They're not green orcs like the ones we have here in our world. And now they're corrupted? That's pretty crazy, because that's like undoing what he did, essentially. That they're going back to being corrupted orcs again. I guess you can't change the future after all. They're going to drink it no matter what.
Her, which leads into a musing on his people. Nari thinks their mourning defines them and tries to bury it under stoicism and duty as a warden. Lysander's face, though, is literally scarred with burns from Teldrassil, but he says he's not broken.
Go in the
None
portal,
of them
bro.
are.
I want to know
Even
the source.
addresses you directly. He says the Night Elves need each other more than ever, and that you see that, and that's why you answered the summonings and took this quest upon yourself. And so, with the portals closed, it's now time to take on their leader, Lord Helnerath, a Dreadlord, and the rival of the original Dreadlord, who used to be in this area in Classic, Lord Banehollow, who actually recently showed up in the Warlock.
This makes me think even more and more about the theory that I've been saying that Saradin Athreus, a Dreadlord, obviously, is going to become the leader of the Burning Legion. Because the Burning Legion, even though we beat them, we technically defeated them when we beat Sargeras, we didn't, destroy them. We just defeated their leader. So now they're just a leaderless army, ready for somebody to take the throne and start, commanding them on what to do next. And I think that's going to be Sire and the Dreadlords, who are going to use this army to do whatever they want to do.
Quest, which is rather suspicious. Maiev, of course, seethes in her classic rage, promising his end. The key, of course, though, is Lysander, who can stop the summoning Helnerath is about to finish. Nari mentions how brave her brother has been, and that she need not worry, which is a reversal of before, when she hid that this was her prison. She didn't want him to worry about her, sort of showing that really her overprotection was a mistake, and was in fact a projection of her own fear. Arcanaren's line for the last quest is cheesy as hell, but it does go hard.
Yeah, that's good.
It is time to put our demons to rest.
There you go.
I mean, that is, you're literally killing a demon. That is levels of cringe that meet I am my scars. And in a way, it also kind of rocks.
Don't talk shit about that line. That was a great one.
Blizzard cheese that, if somebody overheard it might be a bit embarrassed, but also you're like, yeah, it's kind of cool, though, isn't it? It sort of is a scars.
Cool.
Now, that's the kind of stuff that, honestly, WoW needs. Anyway, the fight is, of course, boring because it's modern WoW, and those fights are never interesting. But hey, at least the idea of protecting Lysander while he does his thing is thematic as hell, and if this were a proper scenario instead of a non-instance quest, it could have been a really darn cool moment in gameplay. The sort of thing that maybe would be a solo duty that would slap really hard in that other game that I won't mention. Once you're done,
Final
we
Fantasy.
are treated to what may be the coolest in-game cinematic we've had in WoW in a while, even if, yes, admittedly, it's not the highest quality. Maiev creates an opening for Lysander, who blasts Helnerath, affording Maiev the chance to pop her Avatar of Vengeance and kill the Dreadlord, complete with a fade to black VFX, some real nice sound effects, and the classic "It's Over" camera shot. Helnerath's ritual causes the whole place
Lands
to collapse,
on the knee
so
like
Lysander
superhero
opens a
landing.
portal, everyone escapes, himself diving out at the last second. It's a little bit goofy because it's all happening in the WoW engine, but
Yeah,
hey,
looks
it's
jank,
got
but
that cool
it's
factor,
good, it's
and that's the kind of thing we want. And this is where I want to take a moment to say that this is the energy that WoW needs. It genuinely brings up some
Yes.
memories of Warlords of Draenor and Legion, where the game was a bit rough around the edges, but also...
Yeah, reminds me of WoD. Also, it takes you back to, the husband getting, tortured and killed. Like, these kinds of stories that you feel like Blizzard's even been a little bit afraid to put into the game. They've been trying to make World of Friendcraft. No, we need more war stories. We need this kind of stuff. Vengeful night elves, angry, sad stories of war deaths, that kind of stuff. That's
was
what I
more
play.
willing to have fun with it. If he got
be
shots
in a
like this
war.
all the time, moments of squeaky survival, of characters popping cooldowns and murdering enemies, it would be a lot more satisfying and a lot more visceral than the experience we got. Made me happy to see that. Imagine the Tyrande Sylvanas cinematic from the Shadowlands, but it doesn't immediately blue balls you by slamming the handbrake and drifting from a long-awaited showdown between two
this
highly
was so
motivated
shitty.
characters into a self-indulgent lecture about how bad violence is
Yeah.
in World of Warcraft. Imagine if Thrall had stopped Grom from killing Manaroth and told him that
Exactly.
peace cannot be won with war. You're like, oh, it's a fucking demon,
Yeah.
kill it.
Yeah, exactly.
Anyway, protecting Lysander and this cutscene are the exact sort of groundwork that WoW should have been laying for a long time to make the questing feel cool again. So overall, that's a big win, and there's narrative criticism, but the fact that they can do this sort of thing is a good sign. Outside them, the Moonwell is purified, and this may well be hinting at a future where the elves actually reclaim lost parts of Hyjal. That, to me, would make me excited about
It's
the
interesting to think, though, because now the Night Elves, that's kind of far. Because now the Night Elves are no longer, off the coast of Kalimdor. They're really, if they're going to be in the Dragon Isles, if the new tree's popping up there, which it is, they're going to be off the coast of the Eastern Kingdom. So if they reclaim any of their old land, that shit's far. It's like they're going to split their population.
prospect of an Azeroth revamp expansion. I don't think it'll happen in 2024, but hey, 2026 will
Yeah,
do.
if a revamp happens, I don't think it's the
marches
next one.
onwards.
It's the one
Anyhow,
after.
that, we get to the sappy conclusion. The face markings traditionally reserved for the female-only Watchers is given to Lysander, who turns down the pain-numbing bruiseweed, only to be told the moral of the story, that he proves nothing in choosing to dwell in pain when the world offers ways to move past the pain. Completing the cycle of names, he calls her Warden, but then she corrects him, saying it's Maiev. When you get back,
How
Maiev
nice.
thanks you and hands you the beautiful armor and the glaives. The glaives the Night Elves have wanted for 19 years and grants you the
Nice.
title of Amishan, which means something along the lines of honor of the goddess. Tyrande sends you a cute letter in the post thanking you for your aid, celebrating your new title, and saying that she will personally invite Lysander to join the
Tyrande.
Sentinels. It's all very literal. It's time for the changing of the Kaldorei tradition. Not just like letting a man bear the marking of a protector and becoming a sentinel, but to accept mages into society more, showing that sort of thing in the game narrative, and also to
Night
accept
Elves did
that they
always
need
hate
to
mages.
move on through
I mean,
the pain.
The whole reason the High Elves exist is because of that. The High Elves only exist because they got banished for practicing magic, and it gradually morphed into what is the High Elves / now Blood Elves / now Void Elves today. It was all about playing with magic, and they didn't like that shit.
Instead of just
They've always had
wallowing in it.
anti-magic
And
take, so
sometimes
it's
this is where
interesting
things
that
can
that's
fall
changing.
apart a little bit, because there's basically zero indication that they've been wallowing in pain at all. Plus, their mother being a druid is kind of a retcon of early druids only being males. Night elf mages have widely been accepted since the Chandra rejoining in the Cataclysm, and those face markings have been on player character males and NPCs like Malfurion for years, and male sentinels were already a thing as of Battle for Azeroth. So, like, society, just forget that, okay?
Yeah, no, now we're gonna make it
also,
lore.
Satyr have almost always been male night elves who turned willingly. Why were all of these Satyr actually female sentinels who are forcibly corrupted? We're chopping some things, we're changing some things. One of the things that people like about the night elves is their highly sort of divided society with those more strict roles where the women were the kind of like badass sentinels killing shit, also doing Priestess of the Moon shit, while, the men were kind of doing all the druidism, and that made them feel different to other societal setups. And,
the men got to do the lazy, cool shit. They just stay inside of their bear forms all day sleeping while the women went out and fought.
It was.
Societal.
The dangerous precedent
way to do things
for WoW's story kind of rears its ugly head here. This is all emotionally sound. It's the story of this young, new mage showing the Night Elves a bright future. Very satisfying in paper, especially when his sister's stoicism is shown as pure cope for trauma. But once you examine it, I think some unfortunate truths come to the surface here. This is exactly the sort of thinking that's been pissing people off about WoW's story really since Legion ended. So let me ask this. Why did those things need to change? What was wrong with the Night Elves? Because there's this inherent implication that there was something very wrong with them, and that somehow them opening up their minds, changing everything, improves things. When it comes to wallowing in pain, that absolutely can be true, but the Night Elf people, through Tyronda's story in Shadowlands, got past this, I thought. WoW's had this insane focus on change recently, on dismantling the things that were, and I think people kind of feel that deeply, because slowly, Azeroth is having its edges sanded off, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And I think it's this pretty toxic approach to handling a world and an IP.
Like Dragonflight was not a bad expansion. Like I could say was, because it's basically done at this point. We know how it's going to end with Farak being defeated and us moving on, and Iridikron going to the Void and all that shit. But the problem with Dragonflight's storyline is it was just so friendly. Like there was no real, like there was nothing too bad about it, no anger, no violence. We saw some fights, some dragon fights, but it really just ended with nobody really getting hurt, nothing happening, everyone's all right, everyone survives. There just wasn't much war going on. It was all about reassembling the dragons, all PC liberals. It was all about reassembling the all the dragon boys, making them friends again, getting their powers back, and the climax, Farak's crazy. We're gonna fight him, but that's it. Yeah, like Razageth and Alexstrasza went at it. If you guys remember that cinematic, but it was like I said, it was nothing crazy. It wasn't blood or gore or anything like that, or anyone gotten dismembered or take a limb ripped off. No, it was just because they kind of bit each other, nibbled at each other a little bit, and then it was over. It was okay. Yeah, the power of friendship. Yeah, we need more war. We need more war in Warcraft. That's right.
What was there before wasn't good, so it needs to change. And it has this very unfortunate homogenizing
they're worried society
effect
can't handle
where,
war anymore.
Frankly, all of the different groups in World of Warcraft are feeling just more like humans. And, we're in a fantasy world. Why does everyone got to feel like humans? Humans are the boring race. It's kind of sorry, did you really love the Night Elves as you saw them in Warcraft 3? All that content you played, content in vanilla? Well, you know what? Too bad, actually. They were actually poor traumatized victims, and all that isolationism and feral adherence to nature, that was pure cope. And instead, they should have basically just acted like those good, nice, kind humans like that Anduin Wrynn, who's a good boy, whose hair is so very blonde and perfect, and just act like every other group in the game. It's kind of devoid of tooth and claw. And I think it kind of pisses over the actual race's story and their history. It just very quickly takes them from where they've been in the game to clearly Blizzard just being make them humans like Anduin. And, like, there was good things. It had a Maiev
now
action
everybody
scene,
agrees.
but the
Now
rest
okay.
was kind of her just giving in to some kid who thinks he knows better than she does. And is that really how you treat a legendary hero in the Warcraft franchise? I'm not saying Maiev should be flawless. In fact, if Illidan is his scars, then she is her flaws. And that's actually perfectly okay. And a character being able to move past their flaws, yes, that's good. That can happen. But it's going too far, too fast. It needs more time to cook, right? This is a story that shouldn't happen in a 20-minute quest. And it therefore comes off as having very little respect for the Maiev that people loved in Warcraft 3 and later in the Burning Crusade. Night Elves have nothing to apologize for. They have no weaknesses to overcome from perhaps their own perspective because they're proud enough people, and both times they had major failings with, the Empire causing the War of the Ancients and Illidan's illicit Well of Eternity. They rose to the occasion and they did what they had to do. In fact, their crazy closeness to nature and their reverence for Elune is where their identity and their strength came from. So, making a super big deal about accepting a mage and dismantling the sort of way their society is stratified, that comes across as change for the sake of change. And sure, you can read this as them letting go of their traumas and moving on, but that treats their history as PTSD to overcome rather than the choices that made them who they are. Even if it's actually executed fine, I think the ideas behind this story are a direct antithesis of what people actually want and expect for the Night Elves.
Yeah.
So I would say enough of the
like this whole thing, with the guy being able to play the role of a sentinel and all this other stuff. It just makes them more meh. It takes away some of the specialness from them. They're this ancient race who used to have ancient traditions, and then they're getting rid of them. Okay, anti-tradition. That's what World of War against tradition. That's what World of Warcraft is.
Therapy, honestly, we need a little bit of action. We don't need an 18-year-old prodigy showing up with a better understanding of the Fel than the 10,000-plus-year-old warden making zero mistakes, proving everyone wrong and saving the day. Because this just reeks of insecurity. The insecurity of staff inheriting the franchise, now stuck with a bunch of fantasy races that they don't particularly like the way that
it honestly sounds just like Star Wars. It sounds just like Star Wars, where they had a basically Luke Skywalker got completely shit on because they didn't want to do anything with him anymore, and they wanted to create a new character, so they brought in Rey, and Rey essentially learned everything and was more powerful than Luke ever was. It's fucking ridiculous. It's crazy. But that's when you know character writing isn't done too well. When the only way to make your character stronger is to disassemble a previously written character and make them look shitty. Because you'll never write something as good as that, so you have to make that old character kind of shit. Yeah, that's the way of the world right now. Get rid of the traditions. So yeah, of course the game is going to follow, yeah.
This change it attitude is what led to Shadowlands feeling the way that it did.
So like
and
Arthas.
It kind of hurts me to say that, because this quest has got attention to detail from Classic. And the Night Elves is clearly a labor of love.
You need to make the jailer cool. How do you do that? Disassemble Arthas. Yeah, because jailer will never be as cool as Arthas. The only way to make the jailer cooler, or to bring the jailer into the fray, is to completely destroy and dismantle Arthas' lore.
That's
sad.
For some strange narrative insecurities. It's just completely thematically misplaced. This is the attitude, whether intentional or not, that leaves people with a Netflix witch or a cowboy bebop, I suppose, instead of a Netflix One Piece, with a Shadowlands instead of a Legion. It's also, unfortunately, quite boring. A quick escort quest into a barrow den, and then a fight that's over in a few seconds. Come on. That other MMO does story duties that have people clenching all over the place. Here's an alternative. It's the same thing, but instead of Lysandra being this perfect zoomer, he actually makes mistakes.
That's right, thank you, Minnie. Thank you so much for the sub, man. Welcome. Death Knight of our Scourge.
So he gets enraptured by the raw corruptive power of the Fel because of something Helnarath does, even though he's very well-meaning. Perhaps being young, he lacks the wisdom that Maiev and the rest.
Holy shit, you guys just kicked off a hype train. Thank you so much. Nightmare coming in with the sub as well. Hype train. Yeah, has left us chasing. I like that Luke could separate his body from his spirit, but the fact they killed him off was bananas. Yeah, yeah, yeah. He had all this power, and then he like overextended himself and just died. Vanished away. Fantastic. They had to kill him off because they knew they could never write a character as cool as him. So if Rey was going to take the forefront, they were like, well, what are we going to do with Luke? Let's just write him into the ground and fucking make him commit like spirit suicide. Yeah, that sounds good. Okay.
Must have, because while
Thank you so much for the
Maya
subs.
is a
Nightmare 2 months, man.
traumatized, damaged
4
person
total.
from the crazy time she has had on Azeroth, she's also very experienced and very wise. And she's not generically wise. She's, in
Angry
her own
wise.
little domain. But that should still shine through. And perhaps through the guidance of some of these older characters, he is able to
same things happen with
pass his
Warcraft.
test, pass his rookie mission.
People who never
break
wrote
the
this lore to
temptation,
begin with,
break
trying to
free.
deal with it.
I suppose you could do some sort of appeal to Elune to intervene or something, which would be a bit cliche, and I don't think we should really do that.
Was
But
that an orc head that she just threw
something
into the...
that actually has him...
Was that an orc head? I don't remember that part. What the hell? It is, isn't it?
And I don't think we should really do that. But something that actually has him
That's pretty badass.
grow more in terms of struggles that he must overcome, instead of just continually being right about everything and saying, hey, we've got to heal, man. It just feels boring. And perhaps for the other characters, maybe Maya is
it does happen everywhere. You're right.
A bit worried about this whole magic thing, because magic has some real historical baggage for their civilization.
Yeah.
They could have used this to more genuinely bridge the gap between the generations, instead of it feeling like the new replacing the obsolete.
Yeah. Look at our new character. He's better than these old ones.
For a different task. No longer.
How do you know our new character is better than these old ones? Because of writing. Right? Because she tells him at the end, call me Maiev. There you go. The new guy knew everything. Like you said, this ancient warrior who's been fighting the Legion since the beginning of time didn't know as much as this new little mage knew. So now he can call her by her first name. There you go.
Particularly needed. And a change to this that would respect their history
Illidan
more,
and Arthas,
treat these
those
things
kinds
with
of villains
reverence,
have
but
not
still
been
allow
redone.
those characters to grow and to, start to slowly push up against the barriers of what has defined their civilization. You can do all of these things, but you need to give them time, and you need to do them deftly.
Yes, yeah.
Not just, bam,
Yeah.
good Zoomer boy, there you go, done. Because ultimately, the proof of the pudding is in the eating, and what has happened when Night Elf fans have seen this piece of content? They've not been happy.
Oh, no.
It's the heritage quest. It should be, celebrating the heritage of their people. Instead, it's
creating new
preachy
heritage,
lecture about
essentially.
trauma from a kid, instead of a celebration of what it means to be a hero of the Night Elves.
Right.
It was also limited in scope. Just talking about some elves, because 10.2's PTR story actually does a great job of introducing Night Elves traumatized by Teldrassil and seeing the various different ways that their people cope, for better and for worse.
Great.
It handles this stuff vastly better than this quest. The Druids of the Flame and 10.2 being a dream patch is the love the Night Elves
We
need.
saw some of
And
these
it
guys.
leaves the
Some of these Druids of the Flame NPCs end up in the new world tree. So I wonder what's going to happen with them. But yeah, we saw some of them.
heritage quest in an awkward place where it accomplished basically nothing except finally giving us some banging armor and the glaives. But I
Yeah.
suppose the Moonwell's happenings
We're gonna get the
paved
Warden
way
armor,
for the
too.
reclamation of their forests.
Can't wait for Sylvanas to
With that
return.
being said, though, my final point. I
Yeah.
really hope the interviews are wrong or are teasing or are misinterpreted regarding Malfurion. Because just like how Legion managed to involve Tyrande, Malfurion, and Illidan, yet not even have
It's
those
such a
characters
badass
talk with
cinematic,
each
man.
other, the idea that we finally go to the Emerald Dream And Malfurion, one of the characters the most associated with it, is not involved, is preposterous. The developers may say, yes, well, you know, he's got to hold down the fort in Arden.
How could they have, here's the thing, hold on, how could they have Malfurion involved? You know, he would just downplay all their newly written characters, all the characters that the writers now like because they just wrote them into the game. If Malfurion shows up, no one's going to care about their new characters. He's too great. He's too well written. He's too badass. They can't create anything as good as him. So how do they deal with that? We'll just have him not show up. He's still in Ardenweald, so too bad. Any of the fans who wanted to see him, too bad. You gotta like our new characters more.
Fort in Ardenweald. No one gives a fuck about Ardenweald. Ardenweald is wrapped up
He's right.
in the worst expansion you ever did. And storylines that were absolute wet squibs. And it's even funny. Shadowlands was a stupidly preachy expansion at times, with just forced characters that were so poorly written, like Pelagos, who, funny enough, voices Lysander. Again,
Thrall got the same
story could have been great. You know, where he started, where he ended, both good. How you got there, where was the meat? I don't know what's up with all this constant therapy talk, a lack of action, the amount of tell don't show. There's bits of this quest that actually do show don't tell, finally, right? And that's what I talk about. That's cool, in this video. But this still shows that they are very inconsistent with their narrative. Because on the other hand, you look at the Forsaken. Ha! Death to the living, the Forsaken.
Yeah, they had an all-out battle with the Scarlet Crusade. That was awesome. Cool. Yeah,
they are the Forsaken, right? They're using the way that they can breathe underwater, leaping out of the water, killing motherfuckers, absolute brutality, and it's great. It's just what the Forsaken should be. Why did they get to be the Forsaken, but the Night Elves don't get to be Night Elves? It's just like how Bane Bloodhoof has turned into a bovine Anduin. Come on. Have some actual diversity in your characters, please. All this stuff feels the goddamn same. And with that, I'll see you next time.
Nice. Yeah, good video. I mean, he's totally right. He's totally right. The Forsaken did have a much cooler storyline. It made much more sense. Wouldn't it be cool if the Scarlet Crusade overtook the world? Yeah, it would. But the only problem is they would eradicate the world of all other races. So it'd just become very World of Humancraft would be what it would be if that was the case. I love the Scarlet Crusade. I think they're such cool villains, so well written. The Scarlet Monastery is the set of dungeons that make it up are great. Such a good storyline with them. I hope we get to see it more. But a world of where the Scarlets take over, I don't know if that's gonna happen. I would live for another Undead expansion. I don't know, man. I think people are kind of done with any kind of talk about the afterlife for a little while. Undead in general, I mean, they're going to get more storyline for sure. I think we're going to see, obviously, the Undercity go in some direction. I'm hoping it goes in the direction that we get to see the return of Lordaeron. I hope they rebuild Lordaeron. That would be cool. That'd be a nice thing for the undead to do, because at the end they are citizens of Lordaeron. They just never... It's like they've been ashamed, living underground, and now it's time to come back to the surface. Don't be ashamed anymore. You are undead. You are Lordaeronian citizens. There you go. Rebuild Lordaeron. Do it. I hope they do that.